Son stood in front of my front door holding folders in his hands and said, Dad, just sign these papers. You won't even notice the difference. I looked at the folder, then I looked at him, and finally I looked through the window at the real estate agent sitting in my driveway. That was the moment I realized my own son had not come to ask me for help. He had come to take my house. My name is Robert Hayes. I am 61 years old, retired from the Cisco Transistor Authority after 34 years, and until that afternoon, I believed the hardest thing I would ever have to deal with in retirement was convincing my wife Linda that buying another fishing boat was a terrible financial decision. I was wrong. Linda passed away 3 years ago. Since then, my daughter Emily has been the person who checks on me every Sunday, while my son Jason calls whenever he needs something, money, a favor, a place to stay, a signature. I always gave him the benefit of the doubt because he was my son. That was my first mistake. Jason was 35 and married to Megan, a woman I had never completely trusted. She was polite, ambitious, and always interested in one thing. Whenever she visited my house, my fiance's, she knew what my house was worth. She knew I had no mortgage. She knew I had retirement savings, and most importantly, she knew I had never changed the will Linda and I created years ago. Everything was supposed to be divided equally between Jason and Emily. I thought that made things fairer. Then Jason restaurant started failing. At first, he told me business was slow. Then he asked for $4,000 and a month later another $6,000. Then Megan called me and said they were just going through a temporary rough path. I gave them the money because I did not want my son to lose everything. But one evening, Emily called me, Dad, did you give Jason permissions to use your house as a controller? I laughed because I thought she was joking. What are you talking about? She went silent. Then she said, Dad, I saw something at the county records office. My stomach dropped. The next morning, I went downtown. Cleric pulled up my properly records. There it was a document showing that I had supposedly agreed to use my house as a security for $118,000 business loan. My signature was at the bottom, except it was not my signature. It looked close, almost perfect, but I knew my own handwriting. I started at that page for nearly a minute before I asked the cleric one question. Who notarized this? She gave me a name. I had never heard it before. I immediately called an attorney named Susan Miller, whom a retired Coworked had recommended. Susan examined the document and did not say much. She just asked Robert, did you sign anything for your son recently? No. Did you give him power of attorney? Absolutely not. She leaned back. Then don't call him, don't text him, don't warn him. Why? Because if he knows we discovered this, he can destroy evidence. That sentence changed everything. For the next 2 weeks, I acted completely normal. Jason called me twice. I answered both time. He asked how I was going. I told him I was fine. Then he casually asked, Dad, have you thought about moving into a similar place? I almost laughed. Instead, I said, Why? He said, You are alone now. That house is too much for you. I told him I'd think about him. That evening, Susan called me. She had found something. The loan application had been submitted through a company connected to Megan Brothers, and the address used for several documents was my own house. But the biggest surprise was still coming. Susan discovered that Jason and Megan had already contracted a real estate agent about selling my property. They planned to list my house for nearly for $30,000. My house, the one Linda and I had spent 27 years paying for, the one where Emily took her first steps, the one where Jason broke my basement window playing baseball. They were not playing to borrow against it, they were planning to take it. Susan told me to stay quiet, so I did. 3 days later, Jason showed up at my house. He cried a folder. That's when he stopped in front of my door and said, Dad, just sign this paper. You will not even notice the difference. I opened the folder. The first page was transfer documents. The second page was power of attorney. The third page was something I never accepted to see, a purchase agreement. The buyer was not a stranger. It was an LLC owned by Megan brother. They had arranged everything. Jason looked at me. Dad, you are making this harder than it needs to be. I slowly closed the folder. Jason, why is my house being sold? He sighed. Because you are getting older. I started at him. He continued, you need someone to manage your assets. I said, so you forget my signature. His face changed just slightly. Then he said the sentence I will never forget. You were going to leave it to us anyway. I did not answer because suddenly I understood he was not sorry, he was angry that I had discovered the plan. I looked toward the driveway. The real estate agent was still waiting. Then I said, Okay. Jason blinked. Okay. I nodded. I will sign. He smiled. That was exactly what I wanted him to do because Susan had already prepared something. I reached under the table and pulled out a different folder. Before I sign, I said, You should read this. Jason opened it. Inside were copies of the county records, bank documents, the fraudulent loan application, emails between Megan and the real estate agent, and the statement from the notary whose identity. He had been used without permission. Jason smiled, disappeared. Then I placed one final documents on the table. A police report. I said, "You have 10 minutes to explain everything before my attorney calls the detective." Jason started at me. "You would not go do that to your own son." I looked at him and said, "You did this to your own father." He started crying, not because he was sorry, because he knew the plan was over. Megan called me that night. She screamed that I was destroying their lives. I told her, "No, you did the when you decided my home was yours." The investigation moved quickly. After that, the fraudulent documents were tracked back to our computer used at Megan office. The loan company withdrew the application. The real estate agent cancelled the listing, and the LLC that was supposed to buy my house disappeared almost overnight. Jason eventually admitted that he knew about the forged documents. Megan blamed him. Jason blamed Megan. Neither of them took responsibility until the evidence was sitting in front of them. My attorney helped me remove Jason from my will. I did not leave everything to Emily either. Instead, I created a trust with strict conditions. My house could never be sold by anyone except me. My retirement accounts could never be accessed by family members, and no one would have never again be able to convince me that being someone further meant so rendering my judgment. Jason and I have not spoke in 7 months. Emily still visits us every Sunday. Sometimes we sit on the porch and talk about mom. Sometimes we don't talk at all, and strangely those quiet moments are the ones I appreciate most. Last Sunday, Emily asked me if I regretted exposing her brother. I looked at the house, the same house where my life used to plant roses, the same kitchen where my children grew up, and I said, I regret trusting the wrong person. Then I locked the wrong front door, not because I was afraid, because after everything that happened, I finally understood something. A home is not just a place where you live, it is the place where you should never have to wonder whether the people standing inside it are secretly trying to take it from you. Thanks for watching.